Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say welcome to Let's Talk Online Interviews, why they terrify us, and how do we overcome our fear. My name is Anoka.
And my name is Caillou.
We are very excited to facilitate today's event. As you can probably tell from the title, this workshop is about anxiety revolving around online interviews. I personally hadn't seen too much discussion about this topic back in 2020 when the pandemic hit us, and it got me thinking about the insights that I had gained when I was doing online interviews. My old colleague and friend Caillou was also doing online interviews last year to secure a co op job. And that led us to the idea of creating this workshop. So here we are. We hope today's session will help you combat your fear and provide you with the necessary tools to succeed in your next online interview. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are grateful to live, work, and play on the unceded traditional lands of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Katzie, Kwantlen, and Semiahmoo First Nations. For those who are curious to know why we do a land acknowledgement at SFU, it's to recognize that this land does not belong to us and that Canada has a long way to go in terms of reconciliation. The fact that the last residential school, which is a school that assimilated Indigenous children into Euro Canadian culture, closed in 1996, has always stuck with me because that was the year that I was born. It's important that we don't forget our history with Indigenous people, and land acknowledgements are one of the ways that we do this. We're going to begin this workshop by talking about the different types of emotions that online interviews can bring and how those emotions impacted our job search last year. So, how do online interviews make us feel? Well, online interviews can create a whirlwind of emotions. They can be soul crushing, anxiety inducing, depressing, degrading, exhausting, and often disappointing. These were some of the emotions myself and Caillou felt when we were doing online interviews last year. I had actually begun my job search pre COVID. So this was in January 2020. My job search officially ended in November 2020. 2020 felt like it was the longest year because I had attended so many interviews with very little success. I had worked in 3 different places and worked and quit 2 of them due to a colleague experiencing workplace harassment, and then in the other workplace, a colleague was being verbally abused. I was fired from my third workplace for being quote unquote a bad fit for the company. And that job only lasted a week. At this point, it was August. So 9 months into my job search, and I didn't want to keep applying for jobs. I wanted to fling myself off that roller coaster because I was done. I wanted to stay in bed and not do anything. There were countless days where I would just cry in bed because I felt like I was a complete failure. And after I was fired, my self confidence obliterated into a million pieces.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Inoka that job hunting is literally like riding a roller coaster. In September 2020, last year, I was inspired by an SFU alumni to apply for a co-op to gain more corporate work experiences. I had already done 2 co-op terms in SFU and thought it would be worth it because I want to work outside of SFU and set my foot in a new door. I attended almost like 15 virtual interviews and took me 2 months to land a co-op position. I experienced lots of ups and downs during the co-op seeking, as you could see from the brain exploding meme. Like in the first picture, like the first week of job hunting, my brain was normal. And then after since like receiving one interview invite and then I start feeling panic attack during the interview before the day before the interview, and then my brain is totally explode back to the job hunting because I don't have any offers by the time. Getting an interview is a really positive sign, um, but it could be very challenging because it requires lots of preparation while maintaining your schoolworks, other commitments, and also being rejected by those countless interviews was the worst feelings I has experienced because I felt devalued.
And so, how do you get out of that depressed slump? How do you motivate yourself to keep applying for jobs when it's the last thing that you want to do? Tip one, stop scrolling through your newsfeed and keep applying. One of the things Caillou and myself stopped doing was scrolling the news feeds on LinkedIn. Posts like, I came from nothing and just got a job at PepsiCo can make you feel like your accomplishments are small in comparison. In the current day and age that we are living in, LinkedIn has very much become a flexing competition, and you can't help but compare yourself to other people. You see posts of people who've become a CEO, and you're in your room thinking, well, I'm not a CEO. I'm living in my parents' house with a cat. I'm nothing. And of course, none of this is true, but you tend to be more hard on yourself, especially if you've been experiencing rejection after rejection.
Yeah, I agree with you. Seeing posts like that make you feel like giving up on your job search. 2 months into my job search, I had reached a point where I wanted to give up finding a co-op position. I doubt my ability, my skill set, and I felt myself esteem sinking. It is totally reasonable to feel down during your job hunting. Finding a job is technically a job, so it's critical to take a few days off before you emotionally break down. The key thing is to never give up. You never know what is waiting for you in the future. You can view your rejections as reflections. After an interview, you can reflect on your performance by thinking about what you did well and what you need to improve. I have some pro tip. I would say gather a list of interview questions from all interviews you have been through so that you can develop a better answer in the next interview. And also review your previous volunteer experience to recall your self confidence.
Tip two, your outfit still matters. Now, this may seem like an obvious tip, but you would be surprised by how many people don't take interview attire into account. Even though you can only be seen from the shoulders up, like myself, it's important to dress professionally, whether it's a dress shirt, a full suit, could be a dress. I know that there are people who appear professional from the shoulders and up, but wear pajamas for pants when they're working from home or doing an interview. I personally don't recommend this as it could take you away from the overall interview experience. Now, one of my side hobbies is actually taking acting classes. And in one of my classes, my teacher had told us about a time when she was struggling to find her character. When she was getting ready for this role, she had put on a particular pair of shoes, which led her to find this character. Similarly, when it comes to an interview, you might find that character in your outfit or a pair of shoes. I personally have suits for interviews as well as shoes that I only wear for interviews, and that's how I find my character. Because when you're doing an interview, you are essentially playing a character. You are having to smile constantly, and no normal person smiles that much in real life. You are having to maintain good posture by sitting straight, looking directly at the camera, suppressing any yawning by covering your mouth or excusing yourself. And all of this is why we are completely burnt out after doing an interview. I see it as like going on a first date. You are presenting your best self to impress the person into taking you out on a second date if you enjoy their company. In this case, if you want to be hired by a particular workplace. If you get a call back, that means you either made it to the second round or you got the job. Now, if you don't end up getting the job or you're completely ghosted, you are going to feel completely crushed, angry that they couldn't even bother to send you a rejection email, or disappointed. that you've put in so much energy into something that was for nothing. My pro tip for this is that you can always gain something from each interview experience. It may seem like a waste of time when you get rejected, but each rejection that you experience will only make you a better candidate in the future.
Totally. Tip 3. Strike a balance between looking at the camera and the interviewer. Although you're not making eye contact in the traditional sense, this is the way that the interviewers perceive you are interacting with them. However, be aware of staring at the video cameras for too much because I found that looking at the screen sometimes can normalize the tensions between you and the interviewers. You want to create an engaging interview time instead of making an intense conversation with them. Um, what I did was I looked at the camera when I was answering questions and then look at the screen when the interviewers were asking me questions so that I can have a little gap to relax. My pro tip is elevate your um, laptop to eye level by stacking books or boxes underneath it. As you can see from the pictures, these are different positions for an interview. In the top left image, I'm sitting way back, so I look really small. In the top right image, the interviewer can only see my head because they can see me from my shoulders and up. My eye contact isn't eye level at all, isn't level. My last image is the ideal pose for an interview because I'm having direct eye contact and I'm sitting in front of my laptop. So the interviewer can see my eye level, can see me at eye level. Though, through these examples, you can see how the way you position yourself can make a huge difference. Tip 4. Your backgrounds matters. So be mindful of interruptions from your family members or roommates. If you're not comfortable with showing your house background, create a customized background with your own logo. Make sure it is simple and professional. I create my own background with a simple faded gray image, and my logo is associated with my job application design, so to make myself more memorable. Pro tip. Master your lighting by getting plenty of lights overall, or even position two lights in front of you.
In an extreme case, you may need to resort to spaces that you haven't considered for online interviews. I know of someone who ended up doing their online interview in a closet. They were living in a toxic environment, and this was their way of doing interviews in a quiet space. This individual ended up creating their own Zoom background so that the interviewers weren't able to see the closet walls.
Tip 5. Install the necessary software or sign up for an account on the platform your interviewer is using in advance. I remember a time when the Wi-Fi was down in my residential area an hour before in the interview. I was very frustrated, as you could imagine, because the situation was very unexpected and messed up. Thankfully, I had installed Zoom and Microsoft Teams the day before the interview, so I was able to attend the interview with my mobile data. Pro tip. Test your gear, video and audio. Use earbuds or headphones to enhance your audio quality.
And at the end of the day, if you can't access your Wi Fi, you could ask the interviewer if they would be okay with a phone call interview. This is why it's important to have the office's main number written down and the interviewer's name so that you can be put into contact with them right away. If you have work samples to show, my recommendation is to send those written or design materials a day before the interview so that they have time to look over your sent materials. As for your sound equipment, you don't need to worry about spending hundreds of dollars on a headset. A cheap earbud pair from the dollar store would suffice. I was actually using a $30 Bluetooth set that I was using for the gym for my interviews, but I was experiencing a lot of connection issues with it. This is why it's best to stick with wire earbuds that you can directly plug into your laptop or computer. I know that we're living in a world where the latest phones don't even come with a headphone jack, but having a pair of cheap earbuds, personally I ended up buying mine for $3 at a Japanese dollar store, is your best bet to avoid those kind of technical issues.
Tip 6. The biggest tip, the biggest of a the biggest benefit of a virtual interview is that the interviewer cannot see what is not on camera. Take advantage of your interview space by making notes. In my experience, I use cue cards to analyze the responsibilities on the job description and formulate my answers based on the specific job duties. For example, I wrote videography experience as my cue card's title so that I can identify and answer the interview questions confidently when the interviewer asks about the related skills and experience. As you can see from the image, I also prepared some other cue cards. The top left cue cards has some points that I made about my experience with using programs like Premiere Pro and After Effects. The top right cue card shows my experience with social media management, and the bottom cue cards in the middle has some points about my experience with digital photography. These are just some example, but you can tailor your own cue cards based on the questions you struggle with the most. Pro tip: take a pause when you face difficult questions. It demonstrates confidence and you're taking the questions carefully and seriously. You can also take notes on paper during the interview to capture key information and don't be afraid of asking clarification of the questions.
Absolutely. And have the job description printed and ready beside you, along with your resume and cover letter. If you don't have access to a printer like I do, you could certainly utilize a second monitor or have the job description open on a second device, like a phone, for example.
Tip 7. Bring extra enthusiasm and be presentable. Your facial expressions or reactions translate differently when you're on screen. I put a smiley face sticker next to my laptop camera so that I would not forget to smile and show my passions during the interview. It was an advice from my co-op advisor. I used to feel uncomfortable and tongue-tied with public speaking, but I began pushing myself a little further when attending online interviews. For instance, I took the initiative and sought the employer's permissions to present my personal pitch to give them an overview of my experience. This way, I had a more control on my first impression and also boost my confidence, demonstrate my creativity. You can see my personal pitch here. Um, Pro tip: practice on your own or with a friend. Become comfortable with speaking to the screen and share your screen when talking about your written and design work examples.
And you can certainly use other websites to create a personal pitch or an online portfolio. There are a lot of websites out there where you could use a free trial, but there are also others where you can simply use them for free. We do have a career toolkit available. You can simply request it. We'll have an email below in the description box that you can email it us to if you want access to a career toolkit with that information. Now, it can be hard to find friends to do practice interviews with. Caillou had actually asked me back in September of last year to help her do practice interviews. And this was something that we had arranged twice a week until she had received a job offer in November. Having people who you can do online interview prep can be the difference between a strong interview versus a weak one. We are willing to offer those who will be watching this workshop later an opportunity to schedule chats about career with a career development practitioner who did her certificate at SFU, Her name is Daria, and she has experience working as a student services and employment specialist. She is skilled at assessing and meeting with students one on one to discuss or set their employment goals. She is more than happy to help you explore various career options and help you create your own personal job search strategy. If you would like to talk about how to find a job during the pandemic, anxiety before graduation, or your career goals, please feel free to email Daria to schedule a chat. Her email is on the screen. And I'd like to end this workshop by saying thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us. We hope that you found this workshop helpful, and we are very excited to continue facilitating more of these. So stay tuned, and we'll hope to see you next time. Take care. Bye.
Bye.